Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda, and this is the second episode that I have for you this morning. Before I get started, I would like to remind everyone that today is the 26th day of January. It has been exactly 1 year. Our Patriot Lavoy Finicum by the FBI and the Oregon State Highway Patrol with the Oregon standoff, as they want to refer to it as, out in Oregon last year. I think that we all need to keep the Finicum family in our thoughts and our prayers today. I know this is going to be a very rough day for them. Let's pray that we get justice on this and we get justice soon. Articles in today's episode, the URLs are in the description of this video for your convenience. The first one that I have here is off of BizPac Review, and it tells EPA to take down its page on climate change. Staffers melt. And here goes. It says, President Donald Trump's administration has taken another step forward in removing some of former President Obama's initiatives. It has requested that the Environmental Protection Agency take down the climate change page from its website, according to the report. The EPA has been told by Trump administration to take down its page on climate change reports, and there is a URL from Twitter, and it's by Claudia Corner, and that is dated January the 25th, so yesterday. It says EPA officials notified employees on Tuesday that EPA's communications team was instructed to remove the page, which links to other pages derailing global warming research and information about greenhouse and gas emissions. The page was still up early Wednesday, but it's expected to be taken down soon. If the website goes dark, years of work we have done on climate change will disappear, one of EPA's staffers told Reuters. The staffer also added that some employees were saved some of the information on the website or convinced the administration to keep parts of it. The administration had barred agency employees from posting any climate change related news on social media or discussing anything with the press before the reported instruction to take down the page. Trump administration institutes media blackout for EPA, suspends social media activity, Fox News tweeted. Obama's climate change website or webpage from the White House's main website disappeared less than an hour after Trump took the oath of office on Friday. Attorney General Scott Pruitt has been appointed by Trump to be the agency's new administrator and is awaiting a vote on his nomination. The climate change skeptic has been a harsh critic of the EPA and fought many of Obama's environmental regulations. Though the climate change website will be erased, it seems the information will not disappear, according to Myron Ebel, who was not surprised by the move by Trump's administration. Ebel helped guide the transition of the EPA after election until Trump was sworn in last week. My guess is that the web pages will be taken down. Information will be available, he said. The next one is also off of BizPac Review, and it says, Administration, Veterans Affairs employees already getting fired. Days into Donald Trump's administration, heads are finally beginning to roll at the Department of Veterans Affairs. Corrupt employees in Puerto Rico were fired this week, indicating that more may be on the way. One is the hospital CEO, Dwayne Hamlin, who offered an employee $305,000 to quit after she played a role in exposing his drug arrest. Hamilton was removed from federal service effectively January the 20th, 2017, Inauguration Day, the VA said. Under former Secretary of Veterans Affairs Bob McDonald, the agency ignored years of evidence about shoddy work ethic, theft, and whistleblower retaliation. The VA finally began a months-long investigative proceeding last year after an outside agency, the Office of Special Counsel, prodded VA leadership. Even as it knew of the problems, McDonald tapped Hamlin to mold other VA employees in his image, having him serve as a coach at the Leaders Shaping Leaders training session in September. McDonald said the training is the #1 way to shape the agency's culture. Paperwork reviewed by the Daily Caller News Foundation shows that bosses openly told Rosamea Lopez that she was being fired for refusing to fabricate a reason to fire another employee. After he exposed that Hamlin had been arrested at 3 a.m. in Florida on suspicion of drunk driving while in the possession of pills for which he had no prescription. Diversion of opiates from VA facilities is a major issue. After ethics officials blocked that firing, he attempted to pay her to quit using $305,000 of taxpayer money, which would have been the largest settlement in recent VA history. She refused the money. Lee Bradley, the VA's general counsel under McDonald, told Congress that Hamlin's attempts to get rid of Rosamea Lopez were not retaliation, even though the investigation was ongoing. She did not cite any evidence, and ultimately the evidence apparently concluded otherwise. The other person fired recently is a woman who took part in an armed robbery, then kept her job while she was in jail and continued to work in the hospital security office while wearing an ankle bracelet. After the DCNF broke the story, administrators told Congress it wasn't true, and Elizabeth Riviera fired before backtracking and claiming that it was impossible to fire employees for off-duty crimes. Outside lawyers ridiculed this explanation, and spokesman at the time would not say why she wasn't simply fired for missing work because she was in jail. She was suddenly fired Tuesday for misconduct, including being absent without leave and failing to disclose other arrests on her job application, which her background check apparently did not catch. The hospital has numerous other felons on staff in positions where that background is relevant, and the hospital has simply ignored questions about why. The precedent set this week may suggest that their background may finally be considered by the VA. Among them, Martinez, a human resources official in charge of hiring and disciplining at the facility, is a convicted sex offender who said there's no children in the hospital, so they figure I could not harm anyone here. The employee union uses his status as leverage to keep rank and file employees who run into trouble with the law on the job. I can't make this stuff up. Braxton Litton is a high-level manager in charge of buying prosthetics such as hearing aids, often with government-issued credit cards. He was hired just weeks after release from federal prison for stealing $70,000 using credit card info he lifted from his previous employer. He's also been arrested on drug charges while working for the VA, and it's unclear whether he disclosed those arrests to his employer. It has been shown to be a predictor of future conduct. In 2011, the hospital also hired a man who had a criminal record for illegal firearms in 2007. Last year, he was killed in a shootout suspected to be related to drug dealing. He was carrying his own illegal gun again, but didn't manage to fire first. Lopez was only one of the several employees who provided evidence that Hamlin had punished them for not covering for his misconduct. Within days of his taking over the hospital, his deputy said he had wrongfully billed taxpayers for moving expenses. He forced the deputy out. Records also suggest Hamlin was often missing from the hospital. In December, Senator Jeff Flake introduced a bill requiring the VA to stop hiring felons that already worked there. The American Federation of Government Employees Union has refused to say publicly whether it opposes the bill. During the Obama administration, 11 sex offenders listed in the Detroit VA hospital alone as their work address. Some of them were fugitives wanted by local police, but the VA cited employee privacy. Rapists and kidnappers also worked at nearby hospitals. An Ohio VA employee, Antonine Hall, was convicted of creating pornography depicting a 13-year-old in 2014. Hall is wearing a VA badge around his neck in the sex offender registry picture, meaning he was still going to work after being sentenced, and a bonus in 2015. Ralph Woods was convicted of child molesting in 2006 and sentenced to 5 years in prison with 3 years suspended. He was released in 2008 and almost immediately began working at the Indianapolis VA hospital as a clerk. David Allison was convicted of child molestation in 2007 and began working in medical support assistance in 2010. His 5-year prison term was suspended on probation. Can't make this stuff up. The next one we have is off of Western Journalism, and it says, Senate confirms Trump's choice for CIA despite big-name Republican holdout. The Senate on Monday night voted to confirm Representative Mike Pompeo, Republican of Kansas, as the director of the Central Intelligence Agency. As the voting concluded Monday night, 67 votes in his favor against 30 opposed. He needed simple majority of the Senate to win the confirmation. Among the dissenters was Senator Rand Paul, Republican of Kentucky, one of President Donald Trump's rivals in the Republican primaries. Paul voiced fears over Pompeo's position on torture and the use of surveillance. I worry that his desire for security will trump his defense of liberty, he said. To defend the Constitution and the rights of the American people, shielding the CIA from needed oversight is not consistent with the oath. The entire Bill of Rights is one of the main reasons I ran for office, and I will remain vigilant in that cause. And there is related video in this article if you want to pull it up to take a look at it. I'm going to try to stop it from playing here so that I can go on with the news. Says Pompeo, an Army veteran of the House Intelligence Committee. He was also a member of the House Select Committee on Benghazi, which investigated the 2012 attack on the U.S. diplomatic compound in Benghazi, Libya, during which 4 Americans were killed. An intelligence community that has been at odds with Trump, who on Saturday made a fence-mending trip to the CIA's headquarters. Michael Morrell, the former deputy director of the CIA and Hillary Clinton's supporter, said he had come to admire Pompeo after meeting him. Pompeo has 2 key challenges. First, a bit skeptical of him, and making the CIA's voice heard in the Trump White House, Morrell said. I know Pompeo, and he will succeed at the first challenge. The second will be the defining issue of his tenure as director. During his confirmation hearing, Pompeo labeled as sound the verdict of intelligence agencies that Russia sought to influence the president. He also said he would speak the truth to power and defy any order from Trump if it violated the law. As a conservative lawmaker, Pompeo was a critic of Clinton and the Obama administration. Since the announcement of his nomination by Trump, he has said partisanship will be in the past. Confirmed will be to change roles, he said. During an interview with Wichita Eagle, Pompeo outlined his view on the challenge facing the nation, asked whether Americans were in more danger now than in the past. He agreed. It's a quite accurate perception. It's different today than it was, Pompeo said. There's increasing threats to the West. FBI Director James Comey talks about this. There is an investigation going on in every state with respect to ISIS, every state. And that wasn't the case a couple years ago. Called cybersecurity the next frontier of warfare. New in the sense that the threat to America's intellectual property has been out there for quite some time. We now see hacking taking place by foreign governments and by private individuals all around the world. America has to invest more and be more prepared, and we all have an obligation to be more secure in that way, that we handle our own private information, he said. There's a role there for the government to play, but a lot of this is going to be done by private individuals and private entities in America taking upon themselves of keeping their information more secure, Pompeo said. It is off of BizPack Review, and it says, Dems and Republicans unite to rescind Obama's last-minute bomb. What was he thinking? State secretaries of state are urging the Trump administration to rescind the last-minute Department of Homeland Security directive election systems critical infrastructure. Officials fear that this is the first step toward a federal takeover of state-run elections, the Daily Caller News Foundation has learned. Political discord may be found on other issues. State secretaries who oversee all election machinery appear completely united against the former administration's attempt to insert the federal government into state-run elections. Homeland Security Jay Johnson surprised and outraged state election officials with his January 6th action, just 2 weeks before President-elect Donald Trump was a presidency. Johnson tried to portray his move as part of the Obama administration's effort against Russian government hacking of Democratic Party emails during the presidential campaign. But state officials retort that election machines and the infrastructure are not connected to the internet and therefore are immune to cybersecurity attacks. As Secretary John Kelly indicated in written testimony prior to his confirmation, he is troubled by Johnson's directive. The notion that DHS can or should exercise some degree of influence over state voting systems is highly controversial and appears to be a political question beyond the scope of DHS' current legislative cyber mandates, Kelly wrote. The Association of Secretaries of State, which represents secretaries in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and American Samoa, has or is planning to take up the DHS action at its full meeting. It is scheduled to be held in Washington, D.C. in mid-February. Association President Denise Merrill, serves as Secretary of State for Connecticut, told the DCNF in an interview, "I'm certain this will be a hot topic among all of us." Merrill confirmed the association and many secretaries of state have been in touch with Trump transition staff seeking revocation. I've heard one Secretary of State, I haven't heard one Secretary of State, Democrat or Republican, that's for this, she said. Merrill is Republican Louisiana Secretary of State Tom Schroeder, the association's immediate past president, urged Trump January the 11th to direct the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to rescind the designation of the state election system as criminal infrastructure, or critical infrastructure. The DHS spokesman told the DCNF he could not comment on a possible revocation by Kelly. Johnson sent every state capital when he issued his official proclamation stating, "I have determined that election infrastructure in this country should be designated as a subsector of the existing government facilities critical infrastructure sector." He broadly put all state election facilities under the federal critical infrastructure. His designation would affect all state-operated polling places, centralized vote tabulation location, election storage facilities, and IT systems holding voter registration databases. He also angered state officials because the federal designation would future election activities from public access via the Freedom of Information Act or from state open records law. This came out of the blue, noted Georgia Secretary of State Brian Kemp in an interview with the DCNF. They had never talked to any secretaries of state or election officials around the country before the whole critical infrastructure designation came up. We literally blindsided by this. Turned the tide in convincing DHS that this was not the thing to do, Schroeder told the DCNF. It was very obvious to everyone, and it was nonpartisan. My Democratic colleagues were as against this as my Republican colleagues. Suddenly, it was decided that they were going ahead with it, and we didn't get any notice and read about it in the paper, Merrill recalled. I don't know anyone who doesn't have some concern about it. It's not a particularly partisan issue at this point. And called the designation legally and historically unprecedented and raised questions for the state's and local governments about the administration of this voting process. Critics contend the action was part of a long-standing goal by progressive activists to nationalize future elections with a federal takeover. There's no denying a blatant move to politicize the election process, wrote Heritage Foundation founder Edwin Fuellner in January 16th opinion article. Fuellner, a staunch conservative, called Johnson's actions a federal takeover of state-run elections. It's a takeover ostensibly designed to address a non-existent security threat, ironically make our elections less secure. Kemp agreed, saying, I think that Obama administration was interested in a universal or nationwide registration database versus the state doing that. Nationalizing elections, which I think is a terrible idea. While the Obama administration tied its actions to Russian hacking, election machinery is not connected to the internet. All our equipment you actually vote on, the scanners or touchscreens or whatever state uses, are not connected to anything, Merrill told DCNF. We are not connected to the internet. They're not connected even to internal systems. I don't think the DHS understood the election process, she added. It's not very cyber, and I'm not sure they exactly understood that. Merrill also added that the hacking of the emails from the Democratic National Committee and of Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton campaign manager John Podesta were not part of the government's election system. A hacking of the election, it was a hacking of emails at the DNC, which is not a government agency, she added. Support for the designation can be found among liberals and members of the Congressional Black Caucus. January 16th, Representative Hank Johnson, a Georgia Democrat who is also a member of the Congressional Black Caucus, introduced legislation to support the designation. In the wake of the DNC and well-documented efforts by states to suppress the vote, citizens are rightly concerned, Johnson stated when he introduced the bill. The next one we have here is off of westernjournalism.com, and it says, lawsuit claims Trump's foreign business dealings violate the Constitution. Get the hamster to work with me here so that we can read this. Here we go. A liberal-funded watchdog group filed a lawsuit against Donald Trump Monday, allegedly the newly inaugurated president is violating the emoluments clause of the Constitution by receiving payments from foreign governments through his business empire. Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington filed a lawsuit in federal court in the Southern District of New York to stop President Trump from violating the Constitution by illegally receiving payments from foreign governments. As the framers were aware, private can subtly sway even the most virtuous leaders, the lawsuit argues, and entanglements between American officials and foreign powers could pose a creeping, insidious threat to the republic. Emoluments clause, contained in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution, prohibits office holders from a type of gift or emolument from any king, prince, or foreign state. The Crew lawsuit alleges that the leases that Trump Tower that the leases at Trump Tower that are held by state-run Industrial and Commercial Bank of China and by the Abu Dhabi Tourism and Culture Authority of the United Arab Emirates government violate the clause because they benefit Trump and his company directly and could influence his decision. We did not want to get to this point. It was our hope that the president take the necessary steps to avoid violating the Constitution before he took office. Noah Bookbinder, executive director of Crew, said in a press release. He did not. His constitutional violations are immediate and serious, so we were forced to take legal action. President Trump has made a slogan of America First, Bookbinder continued, so you would think he would want to strictly follow the Constitution emoluments clause, since it was written to ensure our government officials are thinking of America first and not foreign governments. After Trump signed some of his first executive orders Monday in the Oval Office, he called the lawsuit without merit, totally without merit. Well, White House strategic control here. White House Strategic Communications Director Hope Hicks confirmed Monday formally resigned from all of his businesses amid reports suggesting there was no evidence he had done so. The Trump Organization provided a 19-page letter to CNN indicating Trump resigned from his positions with more than 400 business entities before taking office. Thursday, the day before the inauguration, reads, I, Donald Trump, hereby resign from each and every office and position I hold in the entities list, effective immediately. At a press conference earlier this month, Trump addressed critics who contend that his financial interests as head of Trump's organization could conflict with his pursuit of the public good. He said federal rules on conflicts to the president and vowed to hand over any profits from foreign governments using his hotels to the U.S. Treasury. He also elaborated on why he would not sell ownership in his company, but instead hand over control of his company to his two adult sons. Trump's attorney, Sherry Dillon, a partner at Brocchius, has called his moves to limit conflicts extraordinary. Dillon said at the press conference that the hotel rooms and rent are not the same as a gift, so they do not violate the Constitution. Does not require President-elect Trump to do anything here, Dillon said. Paying for a hotel room is not a gift or a present and has nothing to do with an office. It's not an emolument. On this, if you'd like to take a look at that, it says, some legal experts said Crew is unlikely to win its case. Crew's argument for how it has standing to bring the lawsuit barely passed the laugh test. Robert Kellner, election and political law group of the firm Covington and Burlington, and an experienced Republican attorney, told ABC News. The courts will toss this one out. Legal advisor Edwin Williamson told ABC that the emoluments clause does not apply to paying market price hotel. To succeed, Williamson said, and that doesn't even get to the standing issue. There you have all of the articles that I have in this episode for you. If you like what I'm doing here, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to share it around on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. And subscribe if you haven't done that yet. There's a little bell beside that subscription button. If you click on that and check the box, you'll get email alerts every time I put a show out, and that way you'll stay informed. I'll see you in the next